Hello and welcome to Gamecock on the Right. I'm your host Dakota,
And I'm Noah.
and today we actually have a pretty interesting topic as our scheduled guest star was not able to appear, but we thought that the show must go on. So I think that today we're going to just talk about this kind of interesting topic and just kind of give our opinions on it as, you know, politically active leaders on campus.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and that topic is, of course, Gen Z and the Republican Party, and their relationship, and what we think about it.
For sure. Yep.
So, both of us actually were recently interviewed with this being the topic, and we both thought that this was actually a rather interesting topic that we wanted to talk about, kind of more from our lens as. The Gamecock on the Right, sharing, the thoughts and experiences of youth, the youth in college campuses right now that are conservative, as well as high schoolers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But I think that looking at the different types of media we have, there's only one that's remotely right-wing, and it's not even that good, which is Fox News.
Yeah.
I mean, you have other, like, Newsmax and stuff.
Newsmax, One American News, which are the only ones I really watch at this point.
I'm going to be honest, like, I don't have anything against them. It's just they are not near as prevalent as the others at this point. So, yeah. I mean, they're not mainstream enough, at least in my opinion, to garner, like, the notoriety of Fox News. Even.
After the fallout of Tucker Carlson's firing, their viewership went up massively. They are pushing up bigger than Fox News at this point. So I think with given another year or two, and going into the election season, they have a good chance of outgrowing and becoming the most prevalent conservative news media.
Yeah, I definitely think that is definitely a big possibility. But just kind of as it stands now, like Fox News, when people think right-leaning news, they think Fox News. And I mean, that's just as a cultural thing.
Right.
Whether that's, I would say Newsmax is more farther to the right than Fox at this point because of the whole Tucker, fiasco and whatnot. But my point I'm trying to make is most of the news is left-leaning. Center-left, even going farther left. I mean, I wouldn't say that any of the news is, like, far left. Like, when I think of some, they're not, I wouldn't say that they're extremist because they have to palate themselves to a large audience, but it's just like that.
There's definitely a liberal bias there.
There absolutely is a liberal bias there, and I think that the longer that is, and that's not just the cable news, that's the newspapers and the whole nine yards.
Even here on campus, all of our news stuff is left-leaning.
Daily Gamecock is very left-leaning.
Garden to Black as well.
Oh, yeah.
There are really no more conservative news journals or anything on campus. There used to be back in the 90s, but nowadays there's just not.
Yeah, I mean, unless you do something independent, you're not going to get a conservative voice in an official capacity in our college's news outlets.
Exactly. And then especially when you're looking at recently all the stuff they're pushing on campus.
Oh, yeah. Didn't they have some kind of crazy event happening this week?
Yeah, on this Monday, let me pull up there is a workshop called Sex Work and Speculation. What is trans womanhood history?
Just what we need, talking about sex work on campus.
Exactly. This is university sponsored. This is a university-sponsored event.
Yeah, I saw that.
Along with a lot of stuff they do in the libraries on South Carolina history of the LGBT, and then a lot of the student orgs on campus also have a lot more support from the university than a lot more of the right-leaning ones.
I will say, though, that that might be true to an extent, but to give the university credit, they have been, especially with the UA meetings, their big the big protests for their meetings and stuff, the university has been pretty on, in my opinion, pretty spot on with making sure nothing explodes there.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'd especially like to give thanks to the Dean of Students who came out at the Turning Point event and UA events and said, hey, listen, this is a student org. They have every right to be here. They have invited you, so you have every right to be here. please allow expression. This is free speech. We want to protect that. You're
Yeah.
not allowed to participate in a heckler's veto, but you have every right to voice your displeasure, to debate. That is your free speech. But you have to allow them the opportunity to talk. And I really thank him for that.
I think that after the Loomer event, which I think that everyone was just not planned for. I mean, no one planned adequately for the Loomer event.
Yeah.
They immediately saw that and went, we have to do something so this specifically doesn't happen anymore.
For sure.
And what that means is it's not that they don't want people to come and voice a different opinion, but they want to at least be able to voice their opinion. And, there's no dialogue with screaming matches.
Exactly. It's when you get into the actually true debates that actually things can be done.
And I think that there is definitely a time and place for that, but heckling a speech is not that.
For sure.
I mean, let's just go away from, the free speech argument of it. It's just rude.
Absolutely.
I would say that if a conservative went to a more left-leaning event and just heckled them, that's not nice either.
It's not becoming of what we should be standing for.
Exactly.
Or any American should be standing for.
I mean, it's one thing to challenge someone, but
it's an occasional boo or something like that. Just say, hey, listen, no, I disagree with this, but to continuously try to drown them out. No.
I think that we should not give way to basically adults acting like children.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're throwing like a toddler throwing a temper tantrum.
I think a lot of that comes from media. There was a recent Pew Research study that showed that in high schoolers that males have tended to go more conservative, while females are going much more left, much more liberal, and that really does show the divide we have right now in the country in politics. Our generation is very, very divided, as we talked about before. And I think that does come from media and how we consume media. So many people are getting their media from social media as well.
Oh yeah.
So you're seeing the algorithms are completely censoring out a lot of conservative viewpoints, or you're getting where people who tend to follow more conservative are only getting conservative. You're not getting nothing from the left, or you only follow left. So you're getting these feedback loops that are just kind of becoming an echo chamber.
Yes, I was talking with someone yesterday about that, and that's what was said. And I think that's the biggest problem. Like I said, I think that the cable news and the written news does make a difference. People do watch these things.
Absolutely.
A lot less than they used to, but they still do.
Unless there's something massive going on.
Yeah. But social media is something that our generation, for the most part, is on every single day. I'm on social media every day.
Oh, as am I.
I mean, Instagram, Snapchat, the whole 9 yards.
Oh, yeah. Except TikTok. No thank you to TikTok.
I will admit I use TikTok. It's too funny. Too many funny videos. But on TikTok, I will even say that this does happen. I mean, I've seen plenty of conservative content. And if I'm completely honest, I don't mind it every now and then, but I go to TikTok for a laugh.
Exactly.
Okay. Or to be entertained.
If I want politics, I usually go to Twitter.
If I want to, yeah. Twitter.
There's a lot more good content on there.
Even so, still social media. Yeah. And I think that is the biggest problem that we'll face.
For sure.
Is social media's influence on discourse every day. And I think that going back to our lovely friends at the protest, the problem is that the way that the algorithm is set up is that it pushes people more towards extremism.
Absolutely.
Because they're pushed farther and farther into their box, and the box gets smaller and smaller, and that's how we get extremist.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to be completely honest. I'm kind of tired of seeing the extremism. I mean, extremism is good for no one.
Exactly.
It's one thing to hold to a firm belief, but I've seen a lot of more people through my college years have gotten farther and farther down the rabbit hole. And I don't think that that's any benefit to themselves or the country as a whole.
Yeah, it just becomes dangerous at that point.
Exactly. I think that people need to find, and then what it also does is that it cuts off the discourse.
Absolutely.
Because once people get farther and farther into their box, they don't want to talk to the other people in other boxes. And I think that is the problem that we're going to see, and we are seeing right now, but it's going to get worse with Gen Z.
Exactly. And with social media, And that you see, the only time you really ever see any discourse is in the comments of something that's controversial. It's just people screaming back and forth and insulting each other. There's no actual dialogue.
Never good dialogue, never.
Because people are able to do it from behind a screen. Mm-hmm. They don't have to actually do it in person. You actually be able to think about it, discuss it, feel the emotions, and actually be able to have a true dialogue. See if you can find some sort of common ground, which is one of my favorite things to do.
It's so easy also when you're on a comment section or online to be much more visceral and less aware of people. Like if I go, Noah, I hate your guts, and we're sitting right across from each other, that it's harder to do that than to text you, I hate your guts.
Exactly, because you can do it behind a screen, and people, there's a lot of it. It's just people rage baiting, and trying to get clicks and views and trying to get attention. But
I think the big question we're gonna have to see is that here's the issue: Gen Z is becoming more divided. Due to the way that they get their information, and now they're in these boxes, and now they hate it. Everyone hates everyone.
Yep.
So how does the Republican Party, but I would also say before I ask this question, I will say that a lot of the vast majority of people are getting the more left-wing side of this.
Oh, absolutely.
I've noticed that the conservatives are going farther right due to this, but that's because they seek out the conservative side because of the fact that majority of social media is left slanted.
And I think part of it is we're not going as far right as the left is going, but the goal line has moved so far left, it makes us look so much more extreme. But like if you look at somebody who's traditionally a traditional liberal, traditional Southern Democrat back in the 80s, now they become declassified as a far right extremist.
I think that that's also the more extreme parts of the left being disingenuous. But I think another point of it is that I slightly disagree. I think that I do think a lot of people will just, they're more quote unquote far right because the left has moved the goalposts, like Elon Musk said in his meme. Never thought I'd be saying that. It's Elon Musk said in his meme as an official, whatever. But I think that people, in response to the left going so far left, have gone farther right.
Oh, yeah.
Not all of them, but I've seen it in some of my friends. They have gone farther right in response. I don't think they would have gone farther right if the left hasn't gone to this crazy level.
Especially when it comes to Trump.
Yes.
That's one of the biggest things with it.
Trump is
absolute attack on Trump right now, and it's causing people to become so much more divided. Either you think he's innocent, or you think he's deserves to go to jail for the rest of his life. There's no nuance. There's no nuance in the conversation anymore.
I mean, I think nuance is a good thing to have.
Oh, absolutely. Be able to understand different points of view and try to find a larger picture, see that have a larger worldview of everything going on, and seeing how it's played out in history, to be able to see it now and understand what it all means.
Yeah, I think that is essentially the biggest problem we have, is that no one is willing to adopt some nuance in the way that they see things. So then, you have one group over here that's like, and you have another group that's like, at the same time, and they're not willing to
actually have a conversation to find solutions.
And at one point, and I'm not saying this is everyone on the left. I'm not saying it is, because I've met plenty of leftists, even what we would consider ideologically farther left, that still want to do this. But a lot of them that we've met, at least on campus, bringing it more towards, the campus view, they don't want to have a conversation.
Oh, absolutely.
They just want to be there to cause a ruckus, and that's all that they've done.
Yeah, they want to try to block the conversation.
Yeah.
They do not want to let the conversation happen because they view everything that's not their viewpoint as evil.
Mm-hmm. And I think that is the biggest threat that we're going to have as Gen Z in regards to our political futures. We need to have a conversation, and we need to be open to, it maybe not, we don't have to agree on things. I'm not telling people you have to be open to agreeing on things. You have to be open to listening and trying to find a way forward, though.
It's like trying to find some sort of common ground.
Exactly. And from that common ground, we can work on things.
Exactly.
And I think that we can tie this back into the main topic of the Republican Party and Gen Z. So we've broken down all the problems with Gen Z and politics, basically. The division, the polarization, to the point of people not willing to talk.
Yeah.
Now, the big question is, how does the Republican Party take that and win? That's the harder question.
Exactly.
talking about what the problem is, that's the easy part. But the Republican Party has an uphill battle with Gen Z. In my opinion, the Republican Party does not care about young voters like you and I, or our contemporaries on USC's campus, or any campus. And I think that to do that is foolish, because Gen Z is becoming one of the most politically active generations that we've seen in a very long time. And I think the Republican Party's biggest focus right now is boomers still.
Oh, yeah. Because they are boomers themselves.
You were there, too. You were at that event, the Silver Elephant dinner.
Yes.
And when I was looking at the people going to that dinner, which is like it's a Republican Party of the South Carolina Republican Party sponsored dinner.
Yep, it is all their all their
donors. And I understand that, older people have more money. I get that. And maybe this event is not the best way to categorize this. But, when we're there and we're greeting people, and I think the youngest people we saw there were us.
Yeah.
The people working the event. I didn't see anyone that looked under 40 or 50 at that event.
Oh, yeah, no.
And that is, that's what the Republican Party is worried about right now.
Yep.
And Gen Z is voting in the millions now. Millions and millions. They're rising millions every election. They're getting galvanized to go vote. And they're voting left. They're not voting right. And the Republican Party has not taken that, in my opinion, very seriously, because they're still worried about their freaking boomers.
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry, but that's not that won't keep going. That is not a system that is, efficient, because the boomers are all old and they're going to die soon. And then you're going to be left with the Gen Z, who you did not give any one iota to.
Exactly. And that's going to cause them to not want to vote Republican. When I was first started voting back in the midterms, I would just, turn 19 at that point. And there were very few younger people I saw when I was voting there. 2 or 3 people talking to afterwards. But in general, either you didn't go out and vote or people were voting left.
Yeah.
And, this is, small town, South Carolina, heart of Republican country. And people, younger people, if they're voting, they're mainly voting left because they just don't see any care from the Republican Party. The Democratic Party in general has done a much better job with it.
Oh yes.
While I disagree with how they do it, they have influencers and everything have on their payrolls to go out and inform people of their views and to try to push people more and more left.
Mm-hmm.
Republicans aren't doing that. Republicans are not trying to get young voters.
I know, and that's the Republican Party is going to be a party of the past if they keep that. And if you even look at young conservatives, which is, I think a little bit different than calling them Republicans.
Yes.
Conservatives don't like the Republican Party.
Nor do the Libertarians.
I know very few people that are personally a fan of the Republican Party. Now, that's different to say than conservative values or even conservative politics. The Republican Party. I think that the Republican Party, I think 2 things could happen. And I'm not I guess I minored in political science, but I would not consider myself a political scientist. So this is with a grain of salt. Either one, the Republican Party gets their act together and starts worrying about young people and the opinions of young people and shaping policy to try to best fit this incoming climate of young people. Or 2, a new party will arise and the Republican Party will just be yesterday's news.
Exactly. Now, what would you say be the best way to go for Republican Party to go forward to attract young Republican, conservative, libertarian voters?
So I think that the best way to do that is to take these hot topic issues.
Abortion, gun control, climate, economic policy, foreign policy.
Yes. And make them sound like the most common sense way of dealing with these problems. Look at them we need to look at things as not idealistic, which I will say is easy to do, and that is what the Democrats do. They look at things idealistically,
Yep.
if you have an idealistic lens, right, then a lot of times the Democrats have a point. But the problem is that it's not grounded, in my opinion, in reality.
Exactly. When you're looking at some of these, when it comes to, say, climate policies,
Mm-hmm.
they're not, what they're proposing is not going to do anything.
No. And here's my thing about climate policy. I think that most people in the world can agree that humans have had an effect on the climate. I don't think that this is like a hot take or anything. But the difference is that we go, okay, well, if we want to move towards more green forms of energy, that takes time and effort, research, and we can't just give up on what we have now. We have to use that to slowly move our way towards this other thing.
Exactly. And they weren't really pushing for, solar and wind. And while those are good in small scale, they cannot stand up to what the United States electric grid needs.
Yes.
What we need to push is nuclear. If
Nuclear
you want
is an
clean power,
amazing-
nuclear is the, about 45 minutes from my house is Plant Vogtle. South Carolina is almost 60% nuclear.
Mm-hmm.
We're one of the most nuclear powered states, along with Georgia and North Carolina. The South has really, really pushed nuclear power, and it's awesome because it is cheap, it's clean, and it doesn't have all the problems you get from all these other renewable sources like solar and wind.
Yeah.
So when you look at solar, you have all the problems with lithium and all the mining and all the child slaves that go into mining and processing all this stuff. And when their lifespan is up, they can't be recycled. They have to be buried out in landfills and leak, toxins. That's not solving any issues. And I'm coming at this from a conservationist. I grew up a hunter. I grew up surrounded by nature, out in the woods every day, every weekend, hunting with my dad, my brother. And, I've always been, conservationist, preserving nature or conserving nature to be used by future generations, not from a, we have to let nature stay exactly how it is. We cannot touch nature, but no, as a resource that we constantly renew and provides back to us.
Yes, and I just don't think that stuff like the Green New Deal and that way of thinking about the climate is going to be effective in making the changes they want to see. It's just going to cause more problems because we don't have the infrastructure to enact such quick change. If we had the infrastructure in place, we would have a whole different conversation, I think at least. But we don't. And we have to look at issues in a logical of, here's another thing though, is that I also, at the same time, am not a big fan of the alternative, which is, I would say, a lot of Republicans push, which is we need to be like, I'm kind of in the middle on it because I'm not necessarily pro oil and coal personally. Because I think that, they do have bad effects on the environment, but they're what we have right now. And if we want to get to this other thing, we need to use what we have to get there.
And I think part of that comes from the effects of it being kind of overblown.
Yeah.
They're constantly said, pollution is as worst it's ever been. United States has to cut back its pollution. United States has one of the lowest pollutions per capita. Atmospheric pollution, water pollution, land pollution in the world. When you want to have infect,
at least per capita
especially, when you want to enact those changes, you have to look at countries like China, India, the Middle East, parts of Europe, Russia.
Yeah.
These places are so much worse that, while individually, yes, we can do things to help preserve what we have now, I think that, having us using coal, oil, natural gas, those are still good things. And if you use how we're using them now, are not a bad thing. I do think we should push much more nuclear.
I agree.
I think in long term, that is going to be the best thing for us as a species, especially right now, as a country. Mm-hmm. When we're going to be able to become independent electrically, that's going to allow us more bargaining on the world stage instead of us having to buy oil from the Middle East.
Yeah. But that is an example of us and the left have the same concern, which is the environment. I do think that a lot of conservatives do care about the environment.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that it is an overblown exaggeration and I'm not talking to politicians. Politicians suck. All of them suck. I'm talking about conservatives. And they see these, they're like, we care about the environment. We want to see clean rivers. We want to see green grass, clear skies, the whole 9 yards. But the difference is that I think we need to look at this issue as a common sense of, it's like going to the store, right? And you want to buy this new thing. And we are like, okay, we need to, get some money, get some, you need to put something in to get something out kind of thing. And that takes time. You got to go maybe work for some money, or you got to get some money somehow.
Right.
And I think that the leftists are looking at it and they basically go, we need to do this right now. We need this thing right now, regardless of the consequences.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that that's the biggest issue that we have is looking at these things as idealistic versus realistic.
Exactly. And when you're looking at it, while I disagree fundamentally with the solutions they're proposing, the left is proposing solutions. Republicans aren't really proposing any solutions.
Absolutely not.
They're just saying, hey, this is an issue.
Yeah.
And then do nothing about it.
And yeah, that's kind of a big issue that we have. I mean, I would also say that some Republicans are that would be the way that they would solve that issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
We were seeing that on the debate stage. But the party as a whole does not come off as, here's our party platform on how to solve this.
Yep. It is individuals in the party,
yes,
not a party overall.
And that's not to say that the party doesn't have a platform on it, but your platform only is as good as how good you push it out. Absolutely. That is not their priority. And I think that we do need to look at, and looking at other things too, right? I was actually talking with a friend that leans pretty far left. Right. And we were agreeing on, we were talking about criminal justice reform, right? Very hot topic.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm a criminal justice major. That's, what I study. I'm going in for my master's for criminal justice. This is very thing I'm very passionate about. And I was explaining that, look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that all cops are angels, right? And that you could definitely make a point that the militarization of police can in some cases be blown out of proportion. I don't think that police need to have APCs. This isn't Battlefield, okay? But at the same time, that if you want to have, I think that we can both agree that that is not good for society, at least through an image of the police.
Correct.
They look more like law. I think the role, they're law enforcers. That's true. That is part of their job. But they are also civil servants. Yes. So they need to find a good balance of these two things. Right.
But being in the communities more, actually enacting changes, yes, and being, say, hey, listen, we are here for you. We want to help. Mm-hmm. Helping people who are down on their luck.
Yes.
Helping people who just need help.
Yeah, and being able to understand the nuances around people and their situations. Having said that, to do that and to ask police to do that means that you have to invest more in your police.
Absolutely.
And you have to put more money in. Now, I think that just throwing money at the problem is not going to solve it. You have to have wise spending. Correct. You have to but if you want police to be better, you have to, you have to pay them more, and you have to train them more.
You got to train them better.
And that's, I would think, a reasonable solution to the problem, instead of all cops are bastards.
Yeah.
Which I don't think. No, we both agree that some cops are bastards.
Yeah, and then some cops are some of the best people in the world.
Yes, but I think that we can, and we also agree that there is a problem in the criminal justice system. Absolutely. And there is corruption. There's total corruption in the criminal justice system.
When it's being used for profit, there's going to be corruption.
And I think that we all agree. We agree on the problem there. We don't agree on the solution. Yeah. And I think that is kind of the key issue that Republicans need to capture. They need to look. We agree on the problem. But I think the Republican Party, and this is just perspective, they don't really. I get a feeling of apathy on a lot of these issues, at least from the party. This is not talking about any specific politician or any specific, push within the party, but the party as a whole. Their mindset is not on solving these issues that are what Gen Z looks at when they vote. They look at They look at climate change, they look at abortion, they look at, the more social aspects, and they look at the immediate economy, which is tanked. A Gen Z person cannot buy a house with any easiness. They can't buy a good car. And I think that's another systematic problem that we're seeing, is we're seeing higher and higher inflation, and we're seeing all these problems, and everyone sees it. But the Democrats are at least offering some sort of solution.
Whether even if they won't work, they're trying to push something.
Yeah.
And that's what right now Gen Z is looking at. Say, hey, listen, these people are actually trying to do something, whereas Republicans right now overall are just complaining about it.
Yeah. And no one likes a whiner.
No.
Here we are whining about the Republican Party. But I think that we, as the younger generation of conservatives, need to look at our party and say, what the hell do we do with this? Because the problem, and even when we were starting CR, I got a level of apathy even from our state party.
Absolutely.
We had a representative, but at the end of the day, the state party is not very hands-on with the college Republican branches.
No, what they wanted is just to be able to throw their names on us.
Yes.
And be able to say, hey, listen, look at all these colleges we have under us.
Yeah.
Whereas now with the CRA, we actually have people who are caring for us, providing resources for us,
Yeah.
chapter boxes, lawyers.
And the difference is that the CRA are people our age.
Exactly. They are Gen Z, millennials.
Will, the president of the CRA, which is a organization we decided to join based on aligned interest in the future of the Republican Party and conservatism, I believe he's a little older than I am. He's in law school.
Right.
He's
so
a law
probably
student.
3 or 4 years older than us.
Yeah.
He's our generation.
He's in his 20s.
Oh, yeah.
And he is putting together this countrywide organization, which has quickly replaced the old guard with the other group. I think it was the CRNC.
CRNC,
which
College Republican
is
National
the
Convention.
establishment. It's the establishment, and that's another thing that Gen Z does not like is establishment on both sides. Period.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
My friend, basically, it's the same problem with the polarization. But my same friend that I was talking to about politics was like, I don't like the people in the Democrats in office. They're basically just a bunch of center-left assholes. They should be doing more. And that was in reference, obviously, going farther left. But I would say the same thing could be said about our people. We don't like XYZ because they're too moderate. It's the same thing, the same rhetoric, just on both different sides of the aisle. And that is, I think, a symptom of polarization. And the Republican Party has to deal with polarization. That's another first thing that they have to do. They have to get it down to, they need to find a way to get people to chill out a little bit.
Exactly. That's the one thing that Congress has done to unite all of Gen Z. They've made us hate the establishment.
Yes.
It is younger people coming into office now that people are looking towards, not the senators and congressmen who've been there their entire lives and have made millions off of doing nothing but sitting in D.C. and deciding, hey, how long are we going to let this bill go until the economy collapses?
Yeah. And I think that as we're seeing more and more of Gen Z career politicians, they cannot stand them. And that's going on both sides. See this issue with the senileness of Mitch McConnell and Dianne Feinstein. Okay, it's both sides. They're all one team at the end of the day when it comes to career politicians.
All they want to do is sit there and make money.
Yeah. And, to their benefit, to give them the benefit of the doubt, they're doing a really good job doing that. So, it's human nature to do that, but I think that that's not good. We should not give in to our human nature to sit there and be like, I'm going to make myself rich sitting in Congress.
Exactly.
Ruining
You're there
people's
as a
lives.
public servant.
Yes. They're there for our benefit, not theirs.
Exactly. Which is actually why like how the South Carolina does it with House and Senate. It is a part-time job.
Mm-hmm.
You are only making like $15,000, $20,000 a year. Almost every single one of them have other jobs. They do other things. My representative, he owns a insurance company, insurance and real estate, I believe.
Jay Kilmartin, who is a representative, he owns the Melting Pot and a tobacco shop. So you look at these people and they're clearly contributing to society in some way.
Exactly.
They're not sitting there being useless in Congress. And I think that if we're looking at the younger people slowly trickling into Congress, I think that you're definitely seeing more of a push to not be that.
Exactly.
The young people do not like the establishment either. If you look at AOC and Matt Gaetz, they were putting up the bill that was to do term limits. And it directly goes against what benefits them. But because they just have this visceral disdain for the establishment, they don't care.
Exactly. And I do agree with them 100%. Term limits is absolutely necessary.
And looking at, I mean, even the current, like Jeff Jackson, the North Carolina guy that's on TikTok, that level of trend, I don't actually agree with his voting history personally, but I will agree on the fact that going right to your constituents and giving them kind of a rundown, that is very healthy for our system.
No, I agree. And I do really appreciate what he does with that.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't necessarily agree with his politics or his voting, but him being open and talking to his constituents about what's happening in Congress is great.
And he does do it in a good way that I think simplifies, the rule, because Congress is very like specific and rule heavy. I think he does a good job in the fact that it's understandable. And I think that I think that Republicans should be doing the exact same thing. I think that it should be a cultural shift that we have our politicians go to us directly, and especially with the ease of social media and stuff. It's so easy for them to just pop on a camera, be like, "This is what I'm working on. This is what we're doing."
Yeah,
and stuff like that, and stuff like Matt Gaetz and AOC. Working together. They hate each other. They hate each other's guts, and they're working together to make our country a better place. That's what we need to see.
Amen.
And I think that the younger generations are the only ones that can do it, because I mean, they're I don't think that I think they're millennials, but I mean this.
It's still much closer to us than the boomers who are sitting in office right now.
And looking at people running, I mean, we're seeing some younger than average, especially with Vivek Ramaswamy. He's like 38. He's a millennial. Like, he is very young. And I would even say that, I think that's great for our country to have someone that's young and vibrant running for office. And that is what is going to make a big difference, is can we get younger people that are ideologically driven to make America a better place?
Yeah, absolutely.
And once we do that, and once we can find a way to come together as Gen Z, then I think that's how we can progress as a society. But the Republican Party really needs to get their act together.
Absolutely.
And they need to find a way to reach these young people. They need to go to these topics, and they need to look at them as what they are, instead of just doing whatever the opposite of the Democrats is. They need to look at them and say, this is the common sense response. This is what we should be doing to progress our nation to be a better place.
Absolutely.
And until they do that, then honestly, I'm being completely honest, even as the president of college Republicans, I honestly think a better name for it would probably be the college conservatives. Like, the Republican Party sucks. Get your game face on. Do better.
Absolutely.
All right. Is there anything else you would like to say?
I think that we're all good to go. All right. So I thank everybody for tuning in once again. You can find us on social media, on Instagram at USC_college_Republicans. There you can find our link tree with all the other social media, our Twitter, the podcast, Discord, Garnetgate. I thank y'all for tuning in, and I hope to see y'all next time.
Thank you. And again, thank you for joining our push to make the Republican Party a better party.